Building off of our topic from yesterday, we are going to continue simplifying radicals with higher index, but now we're going to throw some variables in. The way I like to do these is I like to kind of think about it as two separate problems and then put my answers together. I just feel like it makes it a little bit easier to stay organized that way. So you can break this up and just think about the number first and then deal with the variables after. So what we did yesterday is we took our number, we were looking for the cube root of 32, and then we took that number and we made a factor tree. So you're going to divide this by 2 until you can't divide it by 2 anymore. And then we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2's. Since we're taking the cube root, that tells us how many 2's to group together. That's 3 2's. So that means we have a 2 out front times the cube root of whatever we have left over. We only have 1, 2 2's. So we're going to multiply those together and keep that number underneath the cubed root. So the cube root of 32 simplifies to 2 cube roots of 4. So we just hold on to that answer for a second, and then we're going to go over here and we're going to deal with the variables. So if you think about x to the 5th power, if we had 5 x's and we try to take the cube root of that, we're taking the cube root, so we would still need groups of 3. So we could take 3 of these x's, group them together, which means 1x can come out front, times the cube root, and we have 2 x's left over, so that's an x squared. And then you can think about the y to the 4th the same way. If you have the cubed root of y to the 4th, that means we have 1, 2, 3, 4 y's. We're only going to take groups of 3, so 1 y can come out front, and then we have this one that has to stay underneath the cubed root. And then lastly, we have our z to the 6th. So if we try to take the cube root of z to the 6th, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we still need groups of 3. So we have 1, 2 groups of 3. So that means that 2 z's can come out front. So we have z squared, because when you bring it out, you would multiply them. And then we don't have anything under here that could not be put into a group of 3. So this is not going to have a radical attached to it. So we kind of like put all of our answers together. This is part of your answer. This is part of your answer. This is part of your answer. And this is part of your answer. So anything that's out front stays out front. So here we have a 2 out front, x, y, z squared, and then the cube root of, and then everything that's underneath, you're going to put underneath one radical. So we had a 4, an x to the 2nd power, y, and then this one did not have a radical attached to it. So this is how your answer should look. There are lots of different ways to think about this. I'm not going to show it this way every time we do a problem, but this is just to kind of illustrate to you, the grouping of the variables just the same way we group our numbers. An easier way to think about it or to do it is if you just take this variable. So if I wanted to take the cube root of x to the 5th, all you're going to think about is 5 divided by 3. Well, 3 goes into 5 one time, so that means 1x can come out front because 3 goes into 5 one time. But you would have a remainder of 2, which means 2 remain underneath. So it would be x times the cube root of x squared. So if you want to think about it like division, so it would be x to the 5 over 3 equals x to the, and then you do this division, 3 goes into 5 one time, So it's 1 2/3. So this remainder right here, that's what ends up being the exponent on the variable underneath. So lots of different ways to think about it. All right, so for this one, we're taking the 4th root. So again, let's split it up to two different things. The 4th root of 162, we're going to think about that, and then we're going to think about the 4th root of a cubed b squared, and then kind of put our answers together. When I do the 4th root of 162, I'm going to make a little factor tree here. 162 is even, so I'm going to just go ahead and start by 2's. 2 goes into 162, what is that, 81 times? So 81 is not even anymore, so we're going to try and divide by 3. So 3 goes into 81 27 times, 3 and 9, and then 3 and 3. So since we are taking the 4th root, we want groups of 4. Well, the 2 is by itself, but we do have lots of 3's. So look, 1, 2, 3, 4 3's. So we have this one group that has 4 3's. So that means a 3 can come out front, and then this 2 has to stay underneath. 4th root of 2. Okay, so you hold on to that for a second, and then you go over here. Well, if I'm trying to take the 4th root, I need at least 4 a's under here or 4 b's in order to be able to let anything be simplified. That's not big enough. And also, if you think about it, if I try to take the 4th root and I have 1, 2, 3 a's and 2 b's, there's no way for me to make a group of 4. So the variable part of this actually doesn't even simplify. So your final answer is 3 times the 4th root of 2, and then the a cubed b squared has to stay underneath. I'm going to do one more with you, and then have you do the rest of these on your own, and then you can always ask if you have questions. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, so if you remember from yesterday, taking the cube root of a negative, we can do that. We just know our answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to think about this as the cube root of -1, the cubed root of 16, and the cubed root of m to the 7th, p to the 4th, q to the 7th. And simplify all those. Well, the cubed root of -1, this is just -1. And then the cube root of 16, we're going to need to make a little factor tree here. So if we do 16 is even, so that's 2 and 8. 8 is 2 and 4, and then 4 is 2 and 2. So if I'm going to grab 3, because this is the cube root, so I need a group of 3. So there's 3 2's, and then 1 left over. This is all multiplication. So we have -1 coming from here. From here, we have 2 cubed roots of 2. And then we want to look at our variables. If you want to write them out, you can, like 7 m's, 4 p's, 7 q's if you want, or you can just think about it like division. So 3 goes into 7 2 times. So we have m squared out front. But then you would have a remainder of 1 because 3 times 2 only gives you 6. So you would have 1m left over. So we have a cube root of m. And then 3 goes into 4 1 time. So we have 1p out front with a remainder of 1. So that means 1 is left underneath. And then for your q to the 7th, same thing as with your m. 3 goes into 7 2 times. So we have 2 q's out front with 1 left over. So that would be 1 q left underneath. Then you put them all together. So -1 times 2 is going to give us -2. All the stuff that's out front, list that first. And then all the stuff that's left underneath the radical. So here we had a cube root of 2, so we have a 2 under here, and cube root of MPQ. So you want to kind of join them together. All right, email me if you have questions.